And it makes you think about the music you've chosen.
And they sell it in cartons.
Do they?
Yeah, you can get cartons of whiskey. So you don't want to have any of that. But then, yeah.
That could be so bad.
Scottish or world whiskey?
Can I say both?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Whisky High Notes, the music and whiskey pairing podcast you never realised you needed.
Good afternoon. So, welcome to Whisky High Notes.
Thank you very much.
I'm your host, Naomi Belshaw, and this afternoon we're going to be talking about classical music, pairing pieces of music with a wonderful array of whiskies this afternoon. And we're in the wonderful surroundings of the Soho Whisky Club in London, which has probably more than 600 whiskies around the wall. And I've got my guest today, Ben Hogwood. Thank you so much for joining me. And I hope this is going to be an enjoyable afternoon for you as much as it is for me.
I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah.
I worked here for PPL for 18 years. And
Yeah.
I never came upstairs.
Really? Wow.
I've
Yeah.
been
Well,
in the shop, but
well,
not
amazing.
upstairs.
Yeah, because the thing I was going to ask you next was, so my podcast is all about bringing people from the classical world into my world of whiskey.
Yeah.
or
yeah.
what I love to do
Terrific.
as one of my hobbies. So
Yeah.
I'd love to know, I've known you for a while, Ben, but
Yeah.
what you do these days in classical music.
These days I am working for Naxos, and I've kind of gone to the other side of what I was doing before, as in I'm making sure we get royalties properly for broadcast and public performance of our recordings and our labels' recordings. Sometimes ones we distribute. Look out for our performers as well.
Yeah.
And also I run a website on the other side, as it were, sort of lunchtimes, evenings, called Arcana, where I look to try and blur the boundaries between classical music and, say, electronic or pop.
Yeah, very cool. Where do you find the time to fit it all in?
I think it's sheer enthusiasm for music, really, and love of music. And this is what I love about working at Naxos. I'm much closer to the music than I was before. And it's a real thrill to be with the musicians, and you feel like you're doing good work for the label and the musicians. Yeah, it's satisfying that way.
Yeah. Because, of course, we met years ago when we both used to work in kind of what royalty, so that whole area of music which is behind the scenes.
Yes.
Most people don't bother talking about.
No.
But it's how musicians and songwriters, composers all earn their money behind the scenes for music. So PPL stands for, what was it?
Phonographic Performance Limited.
Yeah, and that's for the artists, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The artists and the rights holders. And just working for them, I realised just how important that stream of revenue is for people who don't have time to collect it often.
I mean, I remember when you used to do that back in the day, one of the things that fascinated me the most was how you used to be looking at who was on a recording of something, and even as detailed as individual players in an orchestra, to track them down to make sure that they got the payments.
More and more so. And even now at Naxos, I'm still
You're still doing that now?
Those things,
Wow.
And it's proving more valuable than it ever has. Not just for the players, but even, retired and their relations if they've passed away as well. Yeah, it's critical for that.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of detailed work and so many recordings out there.
Yes.
I mean, that's one of the crazy things about classical music when it comes to recorded music, is the number of versions of different pieces, which I'm sure we'll get into this afternoon, because you were quite specific, well, as everyone is, but in which recordings for this. So that's really, really good. So the next part of the afternoon is I'm going to ask you some short fire questions.
Okay.
So I just want you to, respond off the cuff.
Okay.
With, one answer to that.
Yeah.
Scottish or world whiskey?
Can I say both?
Oh, yes, I think I'll accept.
But with
I'll
a
accept
slight preference for Scottish.
Slight preference for Scottish, that's good. Sweet or savoury?
Sweet.
Okay. Oh, okay.
That was difficult.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Difficult.
Yeah. Whiskey or gin?
Whiskey.
Yeah. Good. Glad about that one. Okay. Thank you. So now to the main part of the afternoon. So thank you. You chose quite a wide selection of music in terms of, I suppose, age, time period.
Yeah.
But I feel like it might be ones that some people might know really well.
Yes,
in
I
a
hope
sense,
so.
if they spend a bit of time with classical music.
Yeah.
But I'd be fascinated to hear your personal connections.
Yeah.
With those pieces.
It was really hard to narrow it down.
Well, I know, because I'm trying to make it a podcast where we're not listening to 3 hours of music outside the podcast already been quite a long chat.
Yeah.
So I am trying to get people down to about 40 minutes or so. Yeah. So it is quite hard to narrow that down.
It's a great thing to do. Really enjoyed thinking about it.
Yeah. So I guess going to the main event, I'm going to force you to put them in an order.
Yeah.
So listening to all of the pieces and trying to get the kind of narrative that fits along with maybe going to slightly heavier whiskies through the afternoon.
Great.
I started off over here, and for the first whiskey, which I'll talk about in a minute, I chose the Bach. So you chose Bach Cello Suite No. 1, was it? But all the whole 15 minutes of it. I've forgotten how many.
I suppose it is, yes.
Yeah.
Several reasons for that.
Yeah, what was behind that?
I learnt the cello from age 11. I was supposed to learn the violin, but the school had no violins, so I got put on the cello, which was one of the best things that could have happened.
Yeah,
actually,
wow.
Because I sort of fell in love with playing the cello, and the Bach cello suites are probably my desert island music because they're just consistently rewarding. Yeah. Even now, like, for as long as I've known them, I find out new things about them, and I can play some of them, which helps.
Yeah.
And the first suite, I'm sure cellists would recognise.
I know that one is the one that I definitely recognise straight away, and it's been used in movies and all sorts of things, and it's just. Well, there is something about Bach for me that is so elemental in the way that he puts the tune together, and even if you're a solo instrument, you just get sort of sucked into it. And it's so beautiful, and you float away. Yeah,
and either as a player or as a listener, it just, I mean, I'm getting sort of goosebumps talking about it now because it means so much, that whole piece. But I think especially the saraband in the middle is particularly beautiful. But it's lovely music. It's just it's
kind of timeless, I find, with Bach. And there are so many people in classical music who always refer to him as a composer that they love and music they love of his. By the way, out of interest, at school, was it free lessons?
It was
free school lessons, because that's like me as well.
Yes.
So because they ran out of flute at my school, so I was originally going to try the flute, and I was mad on the idea of trying to learn the flute, and there were no flutes left. So violin was the only thing that was left, and I can't imagine again playing anything other than that. I think I would have been useless on the flute.
And it's, I don't know, learning cello to start with was a bit against the grain. You sort of had the mick taken quite a bit. Is there a body in your case or something like that? And it was quite hard to keep going with it because of the amount of stick you got for it. But I had a brilliant teacher, really fantastic teacher, Barry Metcalf. He lived in, I think, might still live in Bury St Edmunds even.
Really?
Wonderful, wonderful guy. Who drove us all around Norfolk to various things in the snow in his Austin Allegro. And absolutely brilliant. And his enthusiasm, I think, rubbed off on me.
Yeah, no, I definitely had that at school. I was quite lucky. And there are lots of local orchestras as well you could take part in, even when you just started, to really kind of, inspire to carry on. Yeah,
and he introduced me to Bach quite early because it was playable.
Yeah.
And a couple of the movements from the first suite were my exam pieces, which normally means you fall out of favour with something. But that was the opposite, I think. I just really
Do you still play a bit now?
Yeah, I do when I can. Yeah, I'm playing in a pop band at the moment.
Oh, I didn't know,
but
actually,
where I can, if the chance comes up to play Bach, I'll
Yeah. Well, so with that, I decided. Well, I guess I was thinking. About the elemental nature of Bach, or having survived so many centuries, and just a name that everyone knows.
Yeah.
So I went for a Glenfarclas 10. Yeah, and the reason I chose it, Glenfarclas is one of those whiskies that a lot of people have heard of. Maybe not as well known as maybe a Glenfiddich or a Glenlivet, so it's not in absolutely every pub. But there are so many expressions of it, so many. I think we have a whole, hundreds of them in the club here for nearly every year.
Yeah.
But I know in Soho Whisky Club, a lot of people go to the Glenfarclas 10 particularly as a really well-priced whiskey that has a rich flavour. And I just think I wanted that's something that connects with a lot of people, or is easy to get hold of and isn't too hard to reach.
And you have chosen a whiskey that is actually one of my favourites.
Really? Now that I didn't know, because I didn't ask you anything
was
about
introduced to me by my father-in-law. We went for a drink in South Queensferry in a pub, and he got, because my wife Sam was there as well, and we had a shot each of Glenfarclas, and it was described by a man at the bar as a good entry-level whiskey, which amused us because it was, I don't know, he was obviously a very experienced whiskey drinker. And,
well, clearly then this is a perfect way to start our whiskey afternoon. So, cheers.
Cheers.
SpongeBob. So, I think it's a good one to start an afternoon of drinking whiskey, which does get a bit stronger.
That's
but
really nice.
I don't know, do you spend much time when you are drinking whiskey, sometimes like smelling it, tasting it and thinking about the different parts of a taste?
Yeah, especially with the more sort of flavoursome ones. I might be showing up my inexperience here, but something like Laphroaig.
Oh yes, yeah.
That's definitely a sort of all senses.
Yes, no, that one definitely isn't. Well, I'm going to say, I'll say it's an assault on the senses.
Yes,
in a way.
That's good description.
But definitely we will be heading in that direction later. Because I thought I would go the kind of whole range, because you had such a different amount of intensity across the pieces. Yeah. But I don't know, as part of this podcast, I like to take a moment to also look a little bit at the whiskey. So obviously, as this is one that you know quite well, I'd say with this one, it's a nice full-bodied one, quite sherried.
Yeah.
But, has a nice vanilla flavour to it, slight nuttiness. But it's an all-rounder, but a very pleasant one to start.
It really is, yeah. And it's lovely just on its own with no ice or water or anything.
No, exactly. Yeah, no. Yes.
And it's particularly apt because father-in-law connection to wedding, where we had the Bach played while we were signing the register. So it's sort of linked up.
Wow. That was very serendipitous. Wow,
nice.
That's amazing. Yeah. No. So, I mean, as I said, this is a whiskey that really holds its own and is one that's not too badly priced compared to how whiskey is these days. So we'll come back to that one later maybe, but I think I'm going to maybe take you on a journey now to whiskies that you haven't come across before.
Excellent.
Actually. So if we maybe put our whiskies over here, so we'll kind of form a line.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I was trying to think about the music and where the journey is going. So it's maybe not too far off the order that you did give me your pieces in.
Yeah.
But I went to the Mendelssohn next.
Okay.
So this is something that I've paired with the Mendelssohn. So if you chose a particular movement, because I guess I was making you narrow down your choices.
Yeah.
But this movement of which was its third symphony?
Yes.
Yes.
The
Scottish Symphony. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. I found it has a background linked to folklore, and wasn't it a trip around Scotland in reality? So there's the nice link there. But I found it a very joyful, fun movement with a lot of just joy in it. Yeah. So is there a particular thing behind the piece or the movement itself? Do you want to say more?
Yeah, I think of my mum, who is not with us unfortunately, but it's a lovely way to remember her. Yeah. She absolutely loved the island of Mull.
Oh, okay.
And she loved Mendelssohn's Hebrides over in particular. But there's something about, like you say, the folk qualities of the Scottish that really go one step further for me. Yeah. And it's a wonderfully happy bit of music. It's so outdoors as well. Yeah. You feel like you're on the seashore almost.
Yeah, I feel like you're skipping along.
Yeah,
definitely. I definitely got that sense.
It's a wonderful piece of music, and it's just sort of bracing and open air and
And you came across that while you were learning the cello when you were quite young as well, or when did you come across it?
That was a bit later. I probably owe that to my old boss at MCPS.
Oh, okay.
David Gutman. we used to listen to the same CD player because he had 2 headphone jacks on his. I'm showing my age now. This was mid-90s. So anything he listened to, I was able to listen to from the desk around the corner. And I think that was where I first heard the Scottish properly.
Yeah.
And then I realised that my mum liked it as well, and we would listen to that quite a bit.
Yeah. So what were you doing at MCPS? Because that was before your time at PPL.
Yes, that was licensing also.
Okay.
But,
yeah.
On the composer publisher side.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And work at the Sound Archive then as well, because we had links to the Sound Archive.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, we listened to. I remember us listening to Carrie Ann's recording. Of, the Scottish, and thinking, oh, this is just absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, and I went and bought it straight away.
Oh wow! So you had it on CD and everything.
Yeah. And I've actually the Tunbridge Philharmonic did it quite recently.
Oh right.
Where I live, Tunbridge, and it was lovely to get reacquainted with it again. They did a great job.
Well, for this one, I chose an independent bottler. So the Old Particular from Douglas Laing.
Oh.
So I'll try and show the camera the bottle. There we go. And so this particular independent bottler, especially with this particular range, likes to choose single casks and ones that can be hard to get hold of or a little bit older. So it's actually an 18-year-old whiskey. It's single grain and it's Northern British. So it's actually. I don't always go for location, but this one I was thinking about I read about the Holyrood connection a little bit with some of Mendelssohn's journey through Scotland. So I kind of wanted to kind of touch upon that. And then I was trying to find a whiskey that felt joyful. So when you were drinking it, you were enjoying it, but in a light way. Yeah. But it also wasn't too light. I wanted to have some depth. So kind of skipping along. So hence this one, and I came across this one the other night, and I thought, so this one's a little bit stronger at 48.4%. But so let's take a bit longer now to smell and take this one in. Yes, please. Go ahead, and I'll take mine too. Oh. Yeah. So I think this one it's got quite a lot to it.
Yeah.
So what do you pick up with the aroma first of all?
Quite a few things.
Yeah, go on.
But it's difficult to put a name to it almost. Strong.
Yeah, strong. Yes, no, it's definitely strong. Yeah, no. Yeah. I'm still getting some vanilla notes.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that.
I get a little bit of nail polish, but I sometimes get that with whiskies when I get the phenol.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
And then I think my nose is not as delicate today. Should we try a little bit? So I like to try a little bit and then hold it on my palate for a little bit, see how it tastes. And then take it down.
It feels quite lively.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't it?
It's got a bit of pepperiness to it.
Yeah.
It's still quite a sweet. It's got a quite sweet one.
Yeah.
It really lingers for quite a long time on the tongue.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on.
It's quite fizzy almost.
Yes. Yeah. That's exactly what I think. Yeah.
It's really nice.
Yes. It's very It's got a whole depth to the flavour, almost umami, going down, and very warm on this cold day. But I really like the combination of kind of sherry.
And even though it's not Japanese, I don't know why I'm thinking a tiny bit of wasabi.
Yes. No, well, I think when I often use the word peppery, and I'm thinking of that when it's got a little bit of, it's either fizzy or it's like you can feel that it's a little bit of almost something like peat in there going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a bit of wasabi.
That's really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I get a bit of wood notes as well.
It's really hard to describe, but in a good way.
Well, I suppose, sometimes with these independent bottles, what they're so good at is really kind of creating such a wonderful blend of flavours from how they choose the whiskies. And I think what I like, so this is a single grain whiskey rather than a single malt whiskey.
Yeah.
So there's probably more likely different grains going on within there rather than just straightforward barley.
Yeah.
But I often find there's another one, there's Japanese actually, like Nika coffee grain is one of my favorites as well. So it's a grain whiskey again.
Yeah.
And I sometimes find the flavor profile you get from grain whiskies, it's just really warming and rounded, but not in a harsh way, but a very enjoyable way.
Yeah.
But often they can sometimes be seen as a slightly lesser whiskey than a single malt whiskey.
It sort of knows when to stop cutting through.
Yeah.
It stops at just the right bit. Yeah. Ooh. That's old particularly.
So it's Douglas Laing's, and then they have basically different ranges that they do. I think that's one of the other podcasts I've done where I'm using the same independent bottler as well. Yeah. But they have a different range that I've picked from as well. So this one I think particularly is picking quite unusual ones that there aren't many bottles of. So they only they take a single cask. So it's only got that one cask where you can get that whiskey from and that flavour. So it's like 200 to 400 bottles tops, and that's it. And no more. So it's really quite limited. Yeah. But yeah, for me, as I said, I was trying to get something that wasn't one tone, wasn't too light.
Yeah.
And you really got a sense of that kind of that skippy, joyful nature, and that warmth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely does that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe a bit more depth than the Glenfarclas, maybe.
Yeah.
But
up
in the ante.
It almost feels like with the Glenfarclas, it was a kind of a spring water almost.
Yeah.
In comparison.
Yes. Yeah. Just opening up our palates for the rest of the afternoon. Okay. So I then went. I often like to showcase on here not just Scottish whiskies.
Right.
So I went in a totally different direction with this one, but I'm often thinking about the flavour or the style of what the whiskey will taste like rather than trying to match the location. Yeah. So I actually went to your piece of Reich next.
Terrific.
Yes. Yeah. Which is it for 18 instruments? Yes.
Music for 18 musicians.
Yes. Yeah. And this is such a hypnotic piece. Yeah. Which is quite relentless, but at the same time, quite smooth, but just continually the pulsing nature of it. I wanted to find a whiskey that somehow had a pulsing sense of flavour. So I'm hoping that happens. But tell me more about this Steve Reich piece and where you came across it, why you chose it, what it means to you.
I think, Steve Reich was a bit of a revelation at university. And I still remember listening to it at home and my mum calling up from downstairs and saying, "So you've got something stuck up there," because it was going around in circles. And I was like, "No, this is how it's meant to go." And she said, "Is it going to change at any point?" And it was actually Glass that I was listening to at the time. But there was something about Reich and the way, although it is very hypnotic and very similar, the way it developed over time. Yeah. And then I think what really crossed over with Music for 18 musicians was seeing it live. And it's such a communal piece, and watching people walking around the stage.
All right. So where did you see it live?
I've seen it 5 or 6 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The first time was at the Barbican with Reich himself and his musicians. Yeah. And an hour just went past as if it had been the blink of an eye.
Wow.
And it just seemed so, although it's almost a bit improvised as to where the changes in the music
really? Yeah. Because I don't know how many movements there are altogether. Obviously, you've chosen the first 2 parts.
Yeah,
of it for this.
I was thinking of the time duration.
Yes, I know. Sorry. Yeah.
I would choose the whole thing.
Yeah.
Easily. But I find I sometimes put it on just to listen to the start, and then find I've gone an hour and I've gone through the whole thing. Yeah. Because I couldn't take it off. It is hypnotic, and it takes you to a really sort of amazing mental place.
Yeah, well, it's kind of in some ways it's quite zen in a way if you really get into it. I mean, I hadn't really come across it before, but I went to Glastonbury one year, and London Sinfonietta were there playing it on one of the main stages with Johnny Greenwood.
Oh, that was incredible.
And I was intrigued, first of all, that they were playing at Glastonbury. This is, God, way back in probably 2016 or something like that. And then it was just I was there about 11 or 12 in the morning. Most people hadn't got up yet. It was like Saturday morning. And then just this wall of sound.
That's wonderful.
And it was just so amazing to hear it live and in a space like that. And I thought, how am I hearing this at Glastonbury? And and I felt so privileged for everyone else who was there in that moment. Yeah. And I just got up a bit earlier.
And that's such a good choice because it feels for me that's a work that sits right at the junction of, it's not really, I wouldn't say it's really classical and it's not really pop.
No.
It can be viewed from any direction. And it just works.
Yes.
I really love that about it. And and the colours as well, with all the percussion instruments are just amazing.
Yeah, no, definitely worth listen. So, okay, the whiskey pairing. So I have gone for another independent bottle here called the Boutique Whisky Company. I'll just show the camera again. Great. They're really fun in the way they like to bottle their whiskies, and I think they've been going since 2012. And then they have these lovely labels that are individually designed. Fantastic. But this is also an Indian whiskey.
Indian whiskey?
Yes.
Amazing.
So in my time of, being an enjoyer of all whiskies, Scottish probably one of my tops, but liking to find really nice world whiskies as well. Yeah. I think I've come across basically 2 distilleries or two in India that really are doing something more at the single malt range. They're doing really interesting stuff. One of them is Amrut, the other one is Paul John. So they do bottle things themselves, and I've been to a few whiskey tastings with both of them, but obviously they give casks away also to independent bottlers. So this is where the Boutique Whisky Company have taken a 6-year-old whiskey, which I think, it's about the same level of percentage volume as the other one, 47.6.
Yeah.
But there is a little bit of heat to this one, I think, that's interesting. So, I'll be fascinated in your opinion on this one.
Very interesting that you've gone for that, because I think with the Reich as well, it's...
Yeah.
I think he drew a lot on other countries.
Yes.
For, I think, possibly a lot from Africa, but I'm sure India as well.
Yeah, really.
In putting that, because there's an almost tribal quality to creating musicians. And I think, he was trying to include other continents in his thinking. Almost.
Okay. So have you ever tried Indian whiskey before yourself?
No.
Okay, so let's take a little bit of time. So I'm gonna now even go further. I'm gonna look at the colour. So it's a bit darker than the last one. Yeah. One of the interesting things about Indian whiskey, because you've got the whole time that a whiskey matures in the cask, in the barrel, how quickly it evaporates and becomes the alcohol in a barrel partly depends on the temperature.
Okay.
So obviously in Scotland that's usually quite cold.
Yeah.
In hot climates, so when you have either an Asian whiskey, of like I think there's one from Taiwanese whiskies and things like that, or different parts of Japan. But in India, that happens very quickly because the climate is
that
so hot.
why it's 6 years?
Well, it sometimes, I don't know whether everyone agrees with this, but sometimes it means that you can get a more mature whiskey sooner, you get a larger angel share because it evaporates quicker. So the angel share, the bit you lose from a barrel, is bigger. But I think it can have an influence, and it definitely can have an influence on the flavour. So it's quite interesting to see that. But I think it also... It doesn't matter if it's a hot country to try and go ahead and make whiskey as well. So, but slightly darker one. And I also look at what's called the legs a little bit sometimes, which is the bit it leaves around the side of the glass.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's quite pronounced.
Yeah, and when it's quite pronounced, it can mean the whiskey could be potentially fairly oily, which means it might have a flavour that sticks in your palate and on your tongue more. Okay, let's have a...
Feels like it might be... I'm thinking more bourbon.
Oh, really? Okay.
But that might be inexperienced.
I mean, I'm getting more fruits in there, in part of the smell.
Sort of darker fruit.
Yeah. And maybe even some tropical fruits. It can't be just my imagination. Yeah, but maybe maybe some banana in there and a few other things.
It feels like it's come from a hotter country. It's difficult
I know,
to say why, but it does feel that way.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to taste now.
I'm getting the banana thing, definitely.
Yeah, banana, I'm getting a bit of mango as well. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
I think I like mangoes. So maybe it's not quite as well-rounded, I'm going to say, as the one we had before, but there is that little bit of heat that ends and keeps on going for me.
Feels a bit sharper.
Yes.
But in a good way.
Yeah. But yeah, I think when I was trying it the other day while listening to the Steve Reich, I was getting a sense of that kind of heat at the end and the pepperiness, I want to call it again.
Yeah.
Kind of almost a bit like peat kind of cutting through smokiness, just continues on for quite a bit longer. And while I was listening to Steve Reich,
that's very good. And also, I think there's certain junctions in the piece where it's the vibraphone. I think, yes, is like the main point of signals the direction, and it's like a signpost. It's like, oh, now it's time to go on to the next section.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely felt like was it between movements 1 and 2?
Yeah.
I think it was the marimba or that kind of style of instrument that comes in that really changes the texture.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that's the fascinating thing, which you can see more in minimalism, which Philip Glass plays into as well, is like how small changes of instruments taking the fore takes the piece on a whole different journey, and it's how it's all so subtle, but at the same point it really changes the feel and mood,
and you start listening in a different way, and you sort of hone in on specific notes and phrases and then pan out and hear the whole, and then you sort of I really like it for that. You can choose like you can in an orchestra, but this seems really specific. So did you study music at university? I did,
Yeah, okay. So was it part of your studies, or?
Reich did crop up the variations for wind, strings and keyboards, which I absolutely loved and thought I must listen to more. But this piece came a bit later. Electric Counterpoint was a favourite, I think, because I love electronic music and dance music, and there was a piece by the Orb that used electronic counterpoint, and I love that.
You're talking about some of the work that you do in your spare time.
Yes.
And you say that you like to kind of mix up classical music and things that are on the fringes. So you do that a lot with the stuff you're listening to now.
I love electronic music and dance music. I occasionally write some.
Oh, really? As well? Okay.
Yeah, I'd love to devote more time to that, because I've got all the kit, like drum machine and all that, and I have occasionally brought in a mate who's helped produce some things, but I'd love to go back to that and do some more.
Okay.
Well, and I did get to interview Reich once as well.
Did you?
For a website, which was really special. But he ended up interviewing me more.
Really?
He was asking me more about my background, and I wasn't quite ready for that. It was a really good conversation, but it was a real joy to interview him and talk about it a bit.
Amazing. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so I guess that then brings us to our last whiskey and last piece. So you might be able to guess what you have left in your selection.
Yeah.
So for your last piece, you went for quite a intense piece.
Yeah.
So Benjamin Britten's War Requiem.
Yeah.
The opening, I'm guessing, because obviously it's a bit longer.
Yeah.
So where did you come across the War Requiem, or it was
actually again university? It's funny how these pieces have sort of got a link to that, and Britain as well as local to where I grew up. I grew up in South Norfolk, so not far at all from Aldeburgh. I had liked the Britain that I heard, but the War Requiem really knocked me for six. I just thought it was absolute genius on so many levels. The performing forces that he's got, how he uses them, but also the musical language. There's something about how Britain can be tonal, but still sound very experimental, but still have loads of really strong melodic content that you can latch onto, and very, very emotional as well.
Yeah, so you really get a sense that even in just the opening that you've selected for this. And then there is a young choir in it as part of it. Is it a boys' choir or something like that? The way they come through quite angelically, but at the same time, it's clearly about war. It's very intense, and the orchestra backdrop is really heavy.
First hearing that boys' choir and sort of being really surprised, but just thinking that's amazing sound.
Yeah.
The sort of big rumble with the symphony orchestra, and then you've got it's a mixture of sort of purity and the opposite, really. It's incredible.
It's a monumental piece of work now.
And another one like the Reich, I think. Once you've seen it live,
admittedly, I haven't. I think I might get the opportunity later in 26, but
it's incredibly meaningful, especially now. It just has so much relevance at the moment. But musically, it's just I wouldn't change a note of it. It's amazing.
Wow. Amazing. So I chose another independent bottler. I think there was so much depth in your music. I needed whiskies that really had distinctive flavors or interesting stories. So I chose, this is a independent bottling of a Scottish whiskey from Speyside, but it's been, gosh, I'm going to say it wrong now. Dueling.
The correct pronunciation is Dalwhinnia.
There we go.
It's a great bottle.
Yeah, I think I might need to look up the pronunciation of that because my brain's not working right now. But the Artful Dodger are actually a Brighton-based independent bottler. I think they started back in maybe 2018 or something like that, maybe a tiny bit earlier.
Yeah.
But they, I suppose, a bit like the Douglas Laing, they have an attitude of wanting to go for really maybe individual casks. Sometimes they're looking for something really quite special, and they're only going to make a few bottles of it, but they're choosing the best whiskey they can find and then do something really interesting with it. And so they're an even smaller version of that. And I think I went to a whiskey tasting of theirs here early on back in 2018. I was absolutely blown away by some of their drams.
Yeah.
And some of them were finished in sweet wine, Sauterne casks and things like that. They have a Port Charlotte, really peaty one finished in that. And this one is actually finished in an Ardbeg peaty whiskey. So you have a Speyside whiskey finished in a peaty whiskey barrel. And it just adds a whole different switch to the flavour.
Yeah.
So for me, I felt like this one was starting to get peppery and I wanted something that was much deeper, really, really grabbed you. And even though there are light tones to this, there is a bit of an undercurrent of serious peaty whiskey that goes on. They like to bottle at cask strength. So this one is 57.1%, I think. Yeah, I think that's right. So this is a little bit stronger, but so, if you need water, do let me know. But as I say, like every one of theirs I've tried, there is something about the depth of flavour they get because of how they decide to take as a cask and then how they then finish it themselves. Has always really impressed me. And I wanted the one with the most depth in there for the Britain, because there was nothing else with a war requiem that is just so hard hitting. So I think let's smell this one, have a look at it. I think it's possibly the lightest for me. I think so. Yeah, it's much yellow. It's more like a Chardonnay or something like that.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I feel like for me as well, there are legs. It looks less oily than the last one. It's much lighter, more beaded, just very light beads. But I think.
And I was always tempted looking at the bottle, thinking. That could almost be the Suffolk coast, almost thinking of Britain, and it's tempting to think that. Wow.
Yeah.
It doesn't taste that strong.
Well, that's because we've been drinking whiskey.
I suppose, but I was expecting...
I think there are... Often people get worried about cask strength whiskies that you'll need to add water straight away. It depends on what you're drinking. the way it just often gives it more depth, and it doesn't necessarily need water added in order to be able to enjoy it. But it has a lot of different layers, I think.
Yeah.
It kind of starts off light, I think, the space side.
Yeah.
And then just hits more and more. And then for me, there is an end barbecue. For me, there's a barbecue note at the end. Yeah. And then it just keeps on, and then you can feel it here. I mean, where are you on the peat stakes anyway?
It's got real presence, hasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
it's like,
with the flavour.
It's like full back. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very enjoyable.
Yeah. But I think that one is the one with the real peat.
Yes.
But in lots of, in kind of, I'm going to say in 3D, lots of different directions. So it's not just, here's a Lefroy.
Yeah. I suppose
it's much more, it's got much more depth to it.
That's the nearest I've been to it in terms of the few whiskies I've tasted, but it goes beyond that, doesn't it? With its sort of combination of flavours. It's amazing how you can get that much flavour into.
I mean, I think that's. I mean, dare I say, I think with everything I've tried with the Artful Dodger over the years, which is not many because they're hard to get hold of. They don't have any bottles. And I sadly missed the last tasting last year. But every time I tried one, I'd be blown away at the depth of what they're getting out of it.
Yeah.
And there was, I think it was a Port Charlotte whiskey, which is a naturally peaty whiskey from the island of Islay, that was finished in a Sauterne sweet wine from France.
Yeah.
And I was, basically it was a bottle I was taking to a little club that I was in, where it was blind tasting. And so the Sauterne sweet wine just flipped the peaty flavour of the Port Charlotte so much that one person in this little club said, well, one thing I can tell you for sure is it's not a Port Charlotte. And I was like, I was standing going, oh yeah, okay. I was trying to hold in the fact that it was a Port Charlotte. Yeah. But they were really convinced it wasn't because it changed the flavour so much. I do think they're really clever in what they do with their bottlings. Just felt it fit really, really well with so I've the complexity and depth of something like a War Requiem, and then Britain's one of Britain's biggest pieces.
And again, it sort of feels like a cosmopolitan approach. In a way. A bit like the music, but not so much as the Reich, maybe.
Yeah.
It does feel as if it goes beyond these shores, really.
Yeah. Yeah. So
well, I think you've chosen incredibly.
Yeah, well, I was going to say so now it's at this point in the afternoon when we got a nice amount of whiskey left. I have a couple of questions for you. So my first question is, do you have a favourite whiskey of the afternoon? And feel free to taste them again to help you decide that, or do you know straight off?
Oh, that's difficult.
and do feel free to take some water. Just you need to clear your palate in order to, because that last one is 57%. I think I might have water. It's funny because we've been talking for half an hour. They've all opened up a bit more, so when you now go to smell them, they're more room temperature. You actually get more from the aroma as well, I think. The Glenfarclas has really opened up. So it's that one. Yeah.
I suppose I'm biased slightly towards the Glenfarclas because it's one I would probably drink more often.
Yeah, I did than some of the other whiskies. I just love the way it builds into a.
But I think the Artful Dodger is the one I would.
Yeah. I for me, I'm a fan, and that depth of flavour, the barbecue-ness. Even though I'd say maybe the opening, the start of the flavour is a slightly shallower and less round. Yeah, barbecued whiskey. a very clever way to get that. Yeah, and I think, as I said, Glenfarclas 10, I think is one of the popular whiskies here for an everyday dram. So yeah,
well, it's funny
it's a lovely sherried one.
I saw it in the shop the other day and was thinking, it's about time I brought a bottle of whiskey, because I hadn't brought one for a while.
Yeah.
And that was what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's a great job there.
It's fun though. It's
a huge amount of fun.
Yeah.
And it makes you think about the music you've chosen. It's a great way of looking at whiskey as well.
Yeah.
From the other way around.
Well, I think, yes. For me, it's like they're both really complex worlds.
Yeah.
That are subjective, or everyone's got their favourites and their own opinions on why they like music or why they like whiskey. And I think there's more variety and more that you could talk about.
I think it's always a reminder not to get set in your ways with what you drink as much as what you listen to.
Well, I mean, I got into whiskey more than 20 years ago now, and if you look around this room, there are just so many either whiskey distilleries producing different ages or different expressions of whiskies, finished in different barrels, etc. But there are also all the independent bottlers doing their own thing, let alone now different parts of the world that also produce great whiskies, like Japanese whiskey, Taiwanese whiskey. I was trying to allude to earlier. Cavalan is a pretty good one, and Paul John and Amrit in India are pretty decent. So, I mean, I think India is supposed to be the biggest whiskey producing country in the world, but 70% of it is absolute rubbish.
Really?
Like terrible.
Really?
And they sell it in cartons.
Do they?
So go to a shop.
Amazing.
In India, you can get cartons of whiskey. So you don't want to have any of that. But then,
that could be so bad. Wow. I'm thinking I should do the same thing with beer and get ales and
So one of the other questions that I wanted to ask you is also, what is your favourite pairing of this afternoon?
I would go for the Reich and the Paul John. Was it?
Paul John. Yes, that's right. I
was drawn because I am one for judging a book by its cover, and I was very drawn to that label.
Yes, they're really lovely individual labels. Yeah,
it's a very imaginative pairing, which I would certainly not have thought of. I might have expected a bourbon to go with the Reich.
Well,
that's much.
That's it. I mean, I'm doing a mixture because there are times like I maybe was thinking a little bit about what part of Scotland was Mendelssohn in, and reading the story about the tour he was taking, and I was drawn to that. But I think primarily what I'm leaning into is this is what the music is doing to me emotionally, the mood, the feel. What kind of whiskey has that within it?
Yes.
And then what's the story? And then also what's the story? But so it interestingly led me down that path.
But I think each pairing is just really fascinating, the way it's, in a sense, changed a bit how I think about the music, because I've had to think about that. But it makes you realise as well that there's a lot more out there, and I find this with music anyway, there's a lot more out there to listen to, but also with whiskey. I would not have thought there was so much.
Until I start getting more into whiskey and going beyond your local pub to have a nice dram, or my university bar, which is I think when I first got into whiskey. I didn't know about independent bottlers or the idea that you could have a whiskey not just of different ages, but they could be finished in different barrels. And then it completely changes the flavour of a whiskey, and that kind of thing. What I do love is it's not all about age. So it's not that you just get an older whiskey and it's necessarily just much better. It could be, but there are so many other things that come into play. And so, I've been fascinated with whiskey ever since I found out more and more about it. So that's really, really interesting on that. But I definitely think, I definitely had great fun choosing whiskies for this. Something else I was going to ask you, I mean, I'm not quite sure exactly the timeline between us filming this now and exactly when I'll release it. It might be a few months away or whatever. is that what are you up to? Is there anything coming up in you, I suppose, more of your writing world or your Naxos world that would be interesting to look out for from your side?
I think I'm always interested in what's being released album-wise. It's always difficult to pick out what might be coming out this year. I did do some booklet notes quite recently for a lovely disc of Tchaikovsky cello music, which Naxos Gabriel Schwalbe is playing, and I finished those just at the end of last year, and that's coming out in March, I believe. So
much recent.
Actually released in May 2026.
On the writing side, I'm about to start a big project on electronic music.
Oh.
So I want to go back to the start of electronic music and listen to how classical composers approached it, but then move on to more poppy side and things like Kraftwerk and stuff like that.
Okay.
To really get to know some of that music that I've had. So looking forward to doing
that. That sounds good. I mean, you just remind me of a question I had earlier on that I'll ask you now, and I'll maybe try and slip it in. But I was going to ask you, particularly with the Bach. Yeah. Because one of the things that obviously I found most interesting with your selection was the different recordings you wanted picked. To be listed because of your working labels. And I was, is it Stephen Isilis?
Yes.
The cellist. Was there a particular reason you chose that? That recording.
He's written about the suites in a really lovely way through pure enjoyment and sort of reverence. Taking it above the sort of technical and just looking at how the music makes him feel. And I think for cellists, it is kind of the holy grail of the Bach cello suites. And there's about 5 versions I could have chosen. I think there's about 60.
Yes. It took me a while to find the right one.
And there are many that I really enjoy. My first one was Lynn Harrell on Decker, which I must go back to. But Pierre Fournier was one. Some of the older Nicholas Arnoncourt recorded them, I think, back in the 60s or 70s.
Oh, right, wow.
But Stephen Isilis, I know, took a while to approach it, partly because he was daunted about it. But he wanted to wait for the right moment, and I think he definitely found it. And it just felt like everything came together.
That's really cool. So I have one final question for you. So, what is the musical high note you are still chasing in your career? And at what kind of whiskey do you imagine you'll pour for yourself on the day you achieve it? Wow. So, I mean, it's only a small question.
That's really difficult. I think there's certain people I would love to meet and talk about music with. Cool.
Is there any one holy grail like guests
really
that you have to interview?
I've been really fortunate in who I've got to meet and talk to. There's a couple of pop singers, New Order's Bernard Sumner, Depeche Mode's David Kahn.
Oh wow!
I'd love to speak to both of those. I've spoken to people in their groups, but not to them. That would be amazing. Classically, there's certain cellists that I would love to speak to. I'll go for Marion Alsop, actually.
Oh yeah.
I think she's someone who's been on Naxos and done amazing things, but she's done amazing things for classical music as well. And
she really has.
Helping to bring it away from the sort of white male dominated area, which it's sat in for far too long. And I think it'd be great to speak to her, and knowing all the connections she has, having learned with Bernstein. I can imagine she'd be a really good person to interview.
Okay, well, I look forward to hearing that one day or reading about that.
That would be amazing.
And then what would be the dram? Or a particular drum that might be right for that moment? Because I guess it's quite hard to pin down.
I guess that would be exploring probably a region of America that I've not explored yet. Having been slightly limited probably to Kentucky. I'm sure there's, and especially from this, I know there will be others.
Yes.
I'd love to explore more Canadian whiskey, actually.
There's one or two nice Canadian. Yeah.
I've got family in Canada, and it'd be great to.
Yes, and there's one or two single malts from America as well.
Are there? Yeah.
I've tried them. Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we went on quite a journey this afternoon.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Ben, for being my guest this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's always great to see you. And yes, I look forward to reading this Samaritan Alsop interview.
Yeah, and I'll listen to these pieces and try and pair my music and whiskey more often, I think. Yeah, it's fascinating. Really interesting.
Thank you.
You are listening to Whiskey High Notes. Please like, share, subscribe today. Please drink and listen to classical music responsibly.